Hello guys, this is Sullla here again. I'm going to give you the patch review, looking over the patch notes here. I'm not quite sure what to call this. Is this the Zac Patch or is this just patch 3.04? Well, whatever it's called, it's a pretty small patch. It's relatively short on the change list. So let's try to go through this relatively quickly and take a look at what's going on here. Elise, they have put Elise nerfs in here. They're actually, well, it's intended as a nerf. What they're doing is they want to shift a little bit of her power away from her ranged form and a little bit of the power over to her spider form. So they're reducing the range on Neurotoxin and they're reducing the damage. This is a straight damage nerf at all ranks. Uh, let's see, it's at all ranks. It's more severe at higher ranks of the skill. And they're increasing the damage of one of her spider form's ability. I think Venomous Bite is her Q, but don't hold me to that because I have not ever actually played Elise. I believe that this is the same skill that is her neurotoxin, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, they're giving her a little bit more damage in her spider form. That's probably a good change. Elise is considered to be a strong champion, considered to be sort of in the upper tier and gets played competitively a lot. People definitely use her ranged form more than her spider form. You don't see the spider form used nearly as much for Elise. So it looks like they are just trying to shift the power around. I don't think this is going to do much to change how Elise is played. I could be wrong on that. But I don't think it's going to change that much because, like I said, most of the loss on neurotoxin that's been gained back with venomous bite. So this is a little bit more of sort of a reworking than a true nerf, and I don't really see that changing too much. If they had just nerfed neurotoxin, it would be one thing, but they gave her damage back again in her spider form. So we shall see. We'll see what goes on there, but I don't anticipate that having sort of huge drastic changes. Janna got a buff in this patch, which pleases me as someone who's played Janna a lot. The knock-up duration on her Howling Gale, that's her Tornado, that's her Q. It goes up if you charge the tornado for longer. So it's 0.75 if you just fire the tornado instantly, and if you charge it all the way, it's 1 second. That might not sound like a lot, but as someone who's played Janna a lot, it's a huge difference. They've said that this is just a bug fix. I don't believe that. I think this is just a straight buff to Janna because she wasn't played much. Not sure about that. I don't believe Riot there when they say that. I've only played Janna one game since this patch has gone through, and it's definitely noticeable. So now you want to charge the tornado as long as possible until you actually have to use it because you get a longer knock-up duration. And the full channel time on the tornado, it is a lot longer that they're up in the air. It's really noticeable when they're knocked up for 1 second as opposed to 3/4 of a second. So yay, little Janna buffs. Glad to see that. This one's actually pretty significant. If you know what you're doing with Janna, you can get a lot of mileage out of using that. Okay, Jarvan, this is intended to be a nerf, but it's really more of a reworking. The early word is that this hasn't really done much to stop people playing Jarvan. He's considered to be a top tier jungler, and he also gets played mid and top lane sometimes. What they did was they took away the armor component of his Demacian standard. That's his little flagpole toss when he tosses that out. They've taken away the fact that he used to get bonus armor from that. Now, that's all well and good. If they had just done that, I could totally understand that. But what they've done is they've gone ahead and buffed his shield. That's his W, I believe. His Golden Aegis. So shield amount per nearby enemy champ increased. It's the same at the 1 point in the skill. It's the same at 1 point, but it goes up a lot with more points in it. Now it's up to 60 from 40 at max rank. And they've also reduced the mana cost too. They've reduced it from a flat 65 to scaling mana cost, 45 then up to 65. So that's that's a fairly sizable buff there. Less mana cost to use his shield. That means when he's jungling, he doesn't run out of mana nearly as easily, and he gets more health. I mean, more total health. His skill's a little bit weird. I believe he actually gets health, not a shield amount, but have to look back at that. Have to look back at that. But anyway, this is basically a pretty sizable buff to go along with losing the armor component. So I'm not sure this really is going to achieve what Riot's going for here. It's a bit of an odd thing to do to remove the bonus armor, but then give this fairly sizable buff to his shield at the same time. So I don't see this really changing much in the way of Jarvan. He's still quite strong. He offers a lot to the team. He's a solid jungler. and his ultimate's very useful. If you don't have flash up, you're pretty much dead if he ults you. So uh, a bit of an interesting change. I'm surprised that they chose to do things in this way with Jarvan. Nami, her Tidecolor's Blessing, they've added a new visual effect to communicate the number of charges left. That's nice, and they increased the duration to 6 seconds. That said, Nami's been getting buffs. I still don't think that we're going to see her played very much. She just is kind of in a weird position. The biggest thing they need to do to fix Nami is they need to increase the projectile speed on her bubble. If they sped up that projectile speed just a little bit, she'd be very viable. But it's so difficult to hit people with the bubble. That's the main reason why she's not played. So I wonder if we'll ever see that. But knowing Riot, there's a good chance that they will keep buffing her until she's just stupidly overpowered, because they seem to have a lot of trouble knowing when to stop buffing someone or knowing when to stop nerfing someone. They have a lot of trouble with that. One of the few problems with their balance team. I think their team's pretty good overall. This is a very complicated game to balance, but they have a habit of going too far, and we'll see. But this is not too far. Nami, this does not do enough to make Nami really playable. Okay, Singed, the classic nerf too far. They have nerfed Singed too much in this patch. Singed has certainly been getting some play in competitive play. He has been running around in the top lane. That said, Singed has not been dominating play. He's just been sort of one viable option out of many. Why they felt they needed to go crazy and nerf him hardcore is beyond me. Like I said, he was a strong option, but he was hardly overpowered. I thought Singed was actually in a pretty good place. But the nerfs were severe, so let's take a quick look at them. They have nerfed two things. They've nerfed Fling, and this is a fairly brutal nerf. They've nerfed the flat damage, so at all levels, starting at rank 1 all the way up to rank 5, the damage is lower. At all points, it starts at 20 points lower, up to 40 points lower at the max rank. And they've also nerfed the ability power ratio too. So they've cut it from 1-to-1 ratio down to 0.75, which is of course still a good ratio, but it's not 1-to-1 anymore. So that's pretty sizable right there. I thought that if they had just done this, that would have been plenty to try and scale back Singed to. Anyway, I didn't think was that big of a problem anyway. But this is the real killer here. Singe's ultimate, his Insanity Potion, no longer gets tenacity on there, so no longer reduces the duration of disables. That's a really brutal nerf to Singed. When they added this to Singed ult, I think it was about a year ago, that's when you really started to see a lot of play when they added this. So stripping this away just hurts him enormously. I mean, this is what makes Singed. The ability to run around, have people chasing you, and to be spamming slash laugh, slash taunt the whole time as people run around in the poison chasing you. So this, I don't like this change. I think it goes way too far, and it basically just wrecks a character that was not really in a bad place. I thought that Singed was fine. I mean, like, he was not really being picked or banned that much in the game, at least in the competitive games I was watching. I saw him played some, but this was not like when Kale got overbuffed and literally every single game she was picked or banned. It was not like that. Nothing like that. So, not a fan of these changes. I think they go way too far, and I think that they're going to cripple Singed, and we will just basically not see him, period. Taric. The Taric nerfs continue to come in. In the last patch, they tried to nerf Taric, but they did not do a very good job of it, and in fact, Taric was getting played as a jungler by quite a few people, which is not what Riot was trying to do. So now more nerfs start to come in, and we will now see Taric finally start to drop out of the competitive scene, and he will be played less. He will still get played in solo queue because he's a stun bot, but we're going to see a lot less of Taric because these are pretty substantial. Anyway, they have reduced the damage from Shatter at all ranks, starting at rank 1 and then scaling fewer damage at rank 5. They've also reduced this armor ratio where you get bonus damage from building armor. Yeah, when they introduced that in the last patch, I actually did not quite understand what they were doing at first. Some people made some a little bit mean comments in the video about that, but yeah, they introduced this thing where you got more damage on Shatter from building armor. They're scaling that back quite severely, from 30% down to 20%. So this is a major nerf to Shatter. And then this, Dazzle. Very big nerf to Dazzle. They've adjusted the stun so it scales with more points in the skill. So instead of being a flat 1.5, starts at 1.2 and goes up to 1.6. And you might say, oh, well, that's not really a nerf. Yes, that is a very big nerf because Dazzle is a 1-point skill. Nobody puts a lot of points in Dazzle. You put 1 point in it at level 1, and then you have it just sit there. until level 18. So that is a very big nerf because now if you try to do that, it's only 1.2 seconds instead of 1.5, and that's a severe cutback. So big nerfs to Taric. Stop playing Taric, basically. Now, why Taric is getting these nerfs is understandable. Like I said, he's a strong champion. Why Thresh is not getting any nerfs is beyond me. It just sort of boggles the mind that you have this incredibly strong support that has gone through 2 patches now and has not been touched at all. So either people at Riot are just not following the competitive scene where Thresh has been highly prized and picked or banned in many matches, or they just like a new champ and don't want to nerf him until everybody's bought him. So your call on what that is. Like I said, these nerfs are totally understandable. Taric has been strong for a very long time, but they're not really targeting what I see as the strongest support right now. So interesting. We'll see how much longer that lasts. Anyway, Blade of the Ruined King hotfix is finally mentioned in the patch notes. Blade of the Ruined King was so overpowered that it had to be hotfixed. And if you watched my last patch video, I talked about this. I said this item is stupidly overpowered. Go out and play it. One of the few cases where something was so badly broken that it had to be hotfixed. That doesn't happen very often. It does make you wonder what their balance team was doing when they released this item that was incredibly overpowered to the point where even supports were building it. I saw support Thresh building Blade of the Ruined King just because it was so good. Anyway, the attack damage reduced. The combined cost greatly increased by 350 gold. So should tell you something. The item was underpriced. They reduced the max damage to minions and monsters. 260 from 90, and active heal amount now reduced by armor, whereas before it was it was basically true heal. Is that something? It was basically a true heal as far as that goes. So anyway, Blade of the Ruined King is in much better shape now. It's reasonably balanced. It's a strong item without being the idiotic state that it was in when the last patch came out. But anyway, if you've been following the scene, you already know this because this was hotfixed 2 weeks ago. Alright, they are doing some reworks to these aura items, to Aegis / Runic Bulwark, and to Locket. The basic idea behind this is these items are too good on junglers. The idea was they were meant to be support items, mostly, but instead they've been built by junglers a lot. And they actually give a lot of health is sort of the issue. So a lot of junglers are just stacking health by building Bulwark and Locket. And so Riot is trying to nerf that, but they haven't really done enough to change that. Like, they have not done enough to change that. So look at what they've done here. They've added an extra aura to minions on Aegis and Bulwark. Minions get an extra 50% health regen armor and MR. I guess that's to help pushing. I don't see that really affecting too much overall. But more important is what the upgraded item does. So they have reduced the cost on Bulwark, so they've made it cheaper. And now this is why it's not really going to change anything. So it's 250 gold cheaper to build Bulwark. They've reduced the health from 400 down to 300, and they've reduced the magic resist aura from 30 down to 25. I always thought that 30 MR aura was way too good. Always thought that was too good. So it's been nerfed a little bit, but it's also 250 gold cheaper. So is this really going to stop support junglers from rushing this? I don't think so. So I don't think this really changes anything. The stat value is a little lower, and it's a little bit cheaper. So is it a nerf? Yes, but it's very minor. It's not much of one. And Locket's really the same thing. They made Locket cheaper, so Locket is 150 gold cheaper. 1850 gold from 2000, and instead of 400 health, it's 300 health. It's like, well, big whoop. So that's again, that's a nerf, but it's a very modest one. It's only cutting out, like, what is health? What's the price for health? So a ruby crystal is 475 gold for what, 200 health? So health is about like 20 gold. It's like what, something, what is that? Let's see, 200, but yeah. So the valuation is each point of health is worth like 2.5 gold, something like that. So if you cut the cost by 150 and drop health by 100, I mean, yes, that's a nerf, but it's pretty modest. So is this really going to stop junglers and supports from rushing these items? No, it's not. It's not really going to change anything. So nerfs, but very modest. You will still see these items being built in the competitive scene constantly because they're really good. And it's going to take more nerfs than this to get people to stop building them. So I don't see this changing much. The items are cheaper, and they have very slightly less in the way of stats. They basically have a little bit less health. But I don't see this stopping people from buying these. They're still way too good as items. Okay. Runin's Hurricane got a little bit of a buff. They increased the target radius. We will see if this gets people to use it. That short radius is one reason why people typically didn't build Runin's Hurricane, because if you're an AD carry, you can't really get down to 300 range. You can't really be 300 range away if you're a ranged AD. It doesn't work. So we'll see if this gets people to start building it, but this item has largely gone unused to this point in time. Riot had better be careful, though, because if they make this too good, it could break things real fast with Twitch or Vayne or Kog'Maw or something like that. So they have to be very careful with what they do with this item. Sheen just got 60 gold cheaper. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't really understand why, but it's now 1,200 gold instead of 1,260, and Trinity's 60 gold cheaper as well. So yay for people who build Sheen, basically. Anyone that builds Trinity or builds Iceborne Gauntlet has a reason to like this. Lichbane, they made it 60 gold more expensive. So, oh, I see. They made the combined cost more expensive. Total cost unchanged. That is just a reaction to Sheen being slightly cheaper. So this didn't really affect Lichbane at all. It just, Sheen's cheaper, but to finish the item, you have to pay that 60 gold back again. Iceborne Gauntlet, similar thing. The price of the item is the same. It's the combined cost is higher because Sheen is itself cheaper, and they're trying to make it into more of a tank item. They've been steadily doing this since the item came out. They're increasing the armor value, decreasing the ability power. So they want Iceborne Gauntlet to be on a champion like Nasus, a frontline tanky champion. They don't want this to be on Ezreal. Because when this item came out at the beginning of Season 3, it was, oh, every ranged AD, let's build Iceborne Gauntlet. Ezreal, he kites you forever with Iceborne Gauntlet. Yeah, they don't want that. They want this to be more of a melee item. And they're slowly changing the stats to reflect that. So more in the way of armor, less in the way of ability power. Ravenous Hydra got a buff too. It is 200 gold cheaper, now down to 3,300 gold, and the lifesteal went up. This is an item that doesn't seem to be bought very often. I don't particularly like this item because in order to use it most effectively, you have to keep using the active like every 10 seconds. And I find that to be very irritating. I don't really like the whole Dota style model of you're using item actives over and over and over again. I don't really like that, so we'll see. This doesn't seem to be that popular of an item. I've seen it built on like Gangplank and Fiora, and that's about it. It just seems to be sort of oddly placed. Maybe we will see some more people building it now, but I still think it's just kind of in a strange place. It kind of works with melee AD, and that's a role that just is not very common in League of Legends. Most melees are built very tanky, and they kind of have to be to stay alive. Zephyr got buffed. I don't know why. Genuinely do not know why. They increased the attack damage by 5. I don't get this. Zephyr is already a strong item. I'm not sure why they're buffing this. It doesn't really make sense to me, but okay, maybe people aren't building it, but in my games I see people build it quite a bit. One person who really likes this patch is Irelia because Zephyr got cheaper. That's one of her core items. Trinity Force got cheaper. So Blade of the Ruined King still sitting there, really good on Irelia. So expect to see her a lot. If you haven't been seeing her lately, all of her items have just gotten cheaper and better. So expect to see her back on the scene soon enough. This is another, this is basically the same change here. Warden's Mail and Randuin's Omen both had the attack speed reduction cut from 20% to 15%. So Double Lift will be happy. He's been complaining about this, saying that things are just too darn difficult for those ranged ADs because it's too easy to stack these attack speed reductions, get the Randuins, get the Frozen Heart, and so on and so forth. So okay, cut by 5%. A little bit of a nerf. People were indeed building these. And then Seeker's Arm Guard, they reduced the ability power. The flat AP, they're not adjusting the scaling that you get on Seeker's Arm Guard, at least as I understand it. So this item was also seen as being a little too good. So they're cutting back the AP. Runes, they have tried to equal out some of the more bizarre amounts on the runes. For instance, the scaling glyphs on that's the blue runes. They gave 8.62% cooldown reduction. They've changed that to 10%. Because they didn't like sort of the weird numbers on there. And so basically CDR runes CDR and CDR per level runes have been increased at all tiers, largely to even out those sort of weird numbers. Most people typically do not use CDR runes. They are not very popular. We'll see if this causes them to become a little bit more popular. Early in Season 1, these were actually pretty popular runes, but they really fell out of favor. And almost everyone runs magic resist or magic resist per level on their glyphs, on the blues, just because they give the best stat values, basically. They give really good value. And spectator mode fixed a bug that would cause it to crash when using chat commands. Yeah, that sounds like something nice. Restricted chat mode. This is something that they are testing. They are trying to test players in the tribunal, restricting their access to all chat instead of banning people. That's a good idea in theory. Will it work in practice? I'm less certain. The idea behind that was if you ban players who are really nasty online, then they just create Smurf accounts and they come right back on again. So they are trying to experiment with alternatives to that, which is people would still play on their main account, but maybe they can't say anything in the game. Will that solve the problem? I don't know. Will that just shift trolling to people intentionally feeding or whatnot? Because just because they can't say mean things doesn't mean they can't be a jerk. So we will see. I'm not certain if this is going to solve the problem, but I appreciate the attempt. Then there's little tidbits here. Ready checks no longer return you to the landing page. That's actually a really nice feature. If you were adjusting runes or masteries or something and you queued up for a game and you hit ready and then the game didn't launch, it would always kick you back out to PvP, not like the entry page, and that was really irritating. So that's a nice little fix. This more questionable random move to the top of champion select. Oh, Riot, why do you do this? This just opens up the potential for trolling, for people who want to pick Ahri or Akali to click on the wrong button. There's a reason why it was at the end of champion select, so it would be hard to see that. So, not such a big fan of this. I think it was much better placed at the bottom, personally. Chat notifications now wait to appear unless players have closed the AFK pop-up dialog first. Okay, that's nice. Battle training bots no longer acquire unavailable items. I've seen this. Silverbot could still buy Meki Pendant, for example, even though that item is no longer in the game. And then Dragon Baron Tower kills now show assist. Okay, I guess that's kind of nice. Anyway, the biggest thing in this item really are the Singed and Taric nerfs, and they're quite substantial to both champions. I think you can make a solid case for Taric. I think that Singed, the case, is a lot more dubious. And I really do not think that those nerfs were really necessary. And I think they went too far. So top lane Singed players are going to be feeling a little bit sad. The other champs, Elise, Jarvan, they're probably okay in this patch. But not too much adjusted overall. Still a little stuff with items, a little bit of stuff with champions. Anyway, that's all for this patch review. It should be going up. You guys should be seeing this after the Wednesday YouTube night. Hope that some of you were around. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll have more stuff up later this week. Until then, see you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.